we're creating a lazy generation, right? Everything's at their fingertips. They take the information that they get as truths, and they're not taking the time to look up and create an informed decision for themselves, which is scary. Listeners, welcome to Blueprints to Bookings. I'm here with Marie, founder and CEO of AutoPlay AI. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for joining. A lot of SaaS leaders can see what users do, but not why. I'm curious how that insight shaped your early direction. What was your aha moment or marketing challenge that inspired AutoPlay?
Yeah, so for me, really like what AutoPlay is about is solving software adoption. So early on in my, even as college, I was working on my own side projects. I launched an app. I spent a lot of time on design. When they got into customers' hands, they didn't know how to use it or where to go for specific intentions. And what they were trying to do and why they were not getting that is data that today software companies don't have. Like they can't scale, say, what all their users are trying to do and why don't they get there. So what AutoPlay is really focused on is how do we use the recent machine learning techniques and a combination of LLMs to predict user intent and user friction on all different kinds of software. So we build our technology to be software agnostic.
Do you use all large language models or any small language models?
Yeah, so we use Gemini and OpenAI, a mixture of those large language models, but where a lot of our tech goes actually isn't so much into the LLM, it's into structuring the data. So we've built our own ontology. So ontology meaning a way of representing your click data on screens to infer intention. So it's really the structuring the data before into a graph that makes sure the LLM has high accuracy when trying to understand what you're trying to do.
Interesting. So it's less about the dashboard and more about clarity, helping teams see the story behind the data. How does AutoPlay cut through the noise to pinpoint friction points in real time?
So right now, in tools like Mixpanel, Pendo, you can see how many times someone clicked something like a button, but it doesn't tell you what they were trying to do or what the bigger picture was. So the way that we do this is we plug into session replay event data. So a lot of companies capture session replays where it's capturing the clicks, just the user clicks and where they're clicking. And we take that as the event data as input. On the other hand, you have something called the Genie. The Genie is a thing that understands your UI. So for every single software on board AutoPlay, we create a knowledge base through documentation and tutorials. And recently, we're starting to use browser agents like Operator AI that go create a free account on the software, play around with the software, create their own knowledge base that's up to date. And then we take that understanding to define the software, take the event data on the other side, we put it into a structured format, into our own ontology, which we call Terra. And then from there, you output intention and friction. So Genie is really important because you can't predict what users are trying to do on the software if you don't know what the software can even do in the first place.
Right. That's a good point. How quickly can teams act once they see these insights?
They can act instantly. So you connect your session replays. So a lot of our teams use PostHog, which is a pretty common tool for capturing session replays. You connect your knowledge bases like documentation tutorials. We output the intent data at scale. And then from there, we aggregate it. So once you have that aggregation, product teams can act to improve the product. You have customer success that are interested in the user level data to improve onboarding and adoption. And where we're taking this even further is once you get those intent data and friction data for a user on the entire life cycle, you can start personalizing things like welcome emails. So instead of having a generic welcome email that says, hey, like, do this because, and they say the same thing to everyone, they can say, hey, this is what we saw you trying to do. This is where we saw you got stuck. This is what you should do next. So now these welcome emails are personalized content geared to the adoption. That's the first thing we're doing. It's personalized content around adoption, but really our vision is to do that in real time. So in real time, we'll be able to nudge you in real time, like, hey, looks like you're stuck and you're trying to do X, go here.
Okay. So turning insights into action sounds like you've built an AI coach, for lack of a better term, that shows what actually is driving the activation. How does AutoPlay help teams act on what they discover? Or is it just giving them the data that's that's coming in?
The first thing we built was just getting the data right, which is a piece that was missing for everyone, was like, what are people actually trying to do?
Mm.
And now we're working with teams. We're actually kind of doing custom flows right now for different teams, trying to figure out, okay, what do you guys want to do with this data? Some people want to create personalized emails. Some people want to export it into internal dashboards for their sales or customer success to then go and do the manual reach out, but just in a more personalized way. We're trying to meet different teams where they're at. So some of them are going down the more automated part, just automate the email outreach. Some are like, no, we still want a human in
Right.
the loop. Let's just improve that process by giving that data to customer success. And so a lot of our customers are now using NAN and Zapier and creating workflows around that. But the ultimate goal is we have our own MCP server and we automatically create those agentic workflows depending on the team's needs.
Okay. So it feels like we're entering with this AI um, into an era of kind of like self-healing, like the UX model, software that anticipates users' confusion before it happens. What's your vision for AI agents that guide users proactively through the software? How is it different from, say, a chatbot or tooltips?
Yeah. So right now chatbots are passive and they assume that you're going to ask the right questions. So the problem that you have right now is you put a user on a new software, they don't even know the software, so they don't even know what to ask. So that chatbot's sitting there and it's just waiting for you, one, to use it, and then it's waiting for you to ask the right questions for your goals. So those are the two cold starts that a lot of people fall into.
Mhm.
And it's one of the reasons that a lot of co-pilots don't get adopted. People don't like to admit it, but their chatbots don't really get used. And when they do, they don't get used properly. So that's
Right.
the first thing. It's like, how can we use this intent data and friction data to provide better context to the chatbot so they can respond and even like sometimes guide you to what you should be even asking yourself in the first place on a new software or when the software features changing often. Why tooltips don't work is because they often show you things that you do know. So when you go on a new software, you're exploring, you're learning. Different people learn things at different rates. But what's
Mhm.
happening when this tool is showing, hey, by the way, you can do this, and you're like, yeah, I just figured that out. You get annoyed and you just close it. So that's when knowledge becomes really important. It's like making sure that suggestions are geared to what you don't know already and what you're trying to do.
What does like a guided session look like in action?
Just kind of like what we're working towards is, so you, Robert, you just started using a new software like ClickUp, which is like your typical project management. You just log into
Yep.
ClickUp. Let's just give you a second to just explore on your own. We don't want to start throwing annoying pop-ups in your face. So
Mhm.
you take 30 seconds, a minute to start gaining knowledge. In the background, we're tracking your clicks. We've seen similar users like you, so we can start, predicting what you're trying to do. We're predicting what you're starting to figure out for yourself, what you're trying to do, where you're going, where you're hesitating. We get that data and we say, hey, it looks like, you've been trying to do these 2, 3 things. Is this what you're trying to do? Clarify intention. Here is a better way to do it. And here is where we should be taking you. But that's where the psychology of being really intentional that when you provide that suggestion is like giving you that space to also explore. And so we're also working on the tech to identify exploration versus hesitation. So when you're hovering on a new software, you might be hovering because you're exploring, not because you're necessarily hesitating. So making that distinguish is really hard. And that's where R&D goes into.
So I love asking founders this question. What does success look like for you, not just as a company, but for the entire industry you're reshaping?
Oh, I think it's like what success now or success in a couple of years? Because right now, all I'm happy is when my customers say they like my product and they want to pay for it.
We're in this
That's
era
my
where,
success day. And when
hey,
the
that's
AI gets
awesome.
it right, when the AI gets it right, because how AI, I mean, and this is the problem today. People live in this sci-fi idea that AI gets it right. It really doesn't a lot. Like you really have to
No.
build, you really have to really build a robust system. That's why we do a lot of structuring in the data before we even give it to the AI, because AI hallucinates. To give the right context at the right time, it says a bunch of random stuff. So really understanding our vertical and the structure before we even get to the LLM part has been really important for us. There's just a lot of startups out there that are just claiming all this AI stuff and they're just not working. Like Carnegie Mellon just released a paper that 70% of multi-steps agents don't work, which is why we're also not jumping to agents straight away, and we're doing custom workflows, because we've realized that like context is so different for every company. Like, for example, welcome email. I was going a bit in the deep end, but like for me, when a new user goes on my web app, that's the first time logging in. I have a customer who's a mobile app, meaning that if they go on the web app version of that software, I can't assume zero knowledge, because there's a chance that he's already got knowledge and intentions on the software from the mobile app. So adding that context to the AI system, be like, hey, just so you're aware, they're logging into the web app for the first time. It doesn't mean they're new and they don't know what they're doing. They've probably had prior experience in the mobile. So everyone needs different context into the AI system, which is why we do a lot of work to make ourselves software agnostic, and why Genie is so important. Genie is a thing that captures all the context specific to your team and software that no one else has. So that AI system is personalized to every customer. It can't be generic.
What advice would you give to other AI founders?
Structure your data, taxonomy, ontology. Figure out an ontology and structure that's generic to structure your data before you feed it to the LLM, and figure out your context pipeline and make sure it's personalized to each customer. So basically build the context pipeline so that it can be different for every customer.
Right.
For their needs.
So talk to us about your biggest challenge or pivot you've had to make so far.
Hiring good talent is really hard. Hiring the right talent. Yeah, every day is so busy and every day is so chaotic, and I don't always have the time to like go into the weeds of everything. I have to have a certain level of trust with everyone on my team. I've sometimes trusted the wrong people, wrong things. So that's, hiring good talent, but also hiring good talent that you can trust. There's good talent, then there's trustable talent. Those are two very different things. And so, hiring, and sometimes I've had people who might be less talented, but they will stick through it and be loyal through the hardest of times. So it's hard. Like the ideal situation is super talented, super trustable, and will stick through hard times. Because sometimes it's hard. Like startups are hard. A lot of people glorify startups. Like they're like, oh, like I want to join a startup and it's going to become a unicorn. Most startups fail, and most startups, it's really hard. There's a lot of grunt work that you have to do before you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And a lot of people think they can, but they actually can't. Not everyone's willing to do that work. And then you have people that are really good, are really talented, but only want to do the work. They want to cherry pick what they work on. Sometimes startups, you have to work on a whole lot of different things. Hiring the right talent who's really who really understands what it means to work at a startup and isn't living in a fantasy of what it means to work in a startup, it's hard. You have to really align those expectations, and that's not easy.
Yeah, and sometimes that's not apparent in the beginning, right?
No, it isn't.
Every entrepreneur always dreams, or they take action when it comes to starting their company, right? And it's exciting and new. They devote their time, and they don't cherry pick tasks that they like versus tasks that they don't like. And then as time moves on, and it's usually not a long time, it's not as exciting anymore. The work is more daunting, and you incur more problems throughout a day than successes. And it's that mindset that takes most of these startups out of the game quickly, is because it gets boring and repetitive.
They like the raising part and the part on
Yeah.
TechCrunch when announce that you've raised, but really I think there's a big problem where a lot of startups in the tech scene is like, I've been to events where founders just say, oh, like, how much have you raised? How much have you raised? I'm like, why don't we talk about our customers? Because we're not here to raise money. We're here to get customers that pay and get revenue. That's the real success metric. I think there's a lot of people optimize for vanity metrics. And often those people, when it gets hard and the real stuff starts happening, they can't do it because it doesn't fit their ideal perception of what a startup was. And it's not, it's sometimes you've got to get through what they call the valley of death. And you've got to, stick through it. And I think I read an article, like sometimes it's just the most resilient and the grit. You can be very, very smart and not have the grit, So, so I'm trying to find talent. Like, you sometimes compromise on talent, but just someone with grit, it's hard.
All right. No, it is. It is. Especially in today's day and age, where, generation coming up today came up a lot differently than myself. I almost kind of feel that AI and social media and, we're creating a lazy generation, right? Everything's at their fingertips, right? They take the information that they get as truths, and they're not taking the time to look up and create an informed decision for themselves, which is it's scary. The point that you made earlier, I ask this all the time. Companies that are using AI, and a lot of companies say, "Yeah, we use ChatGPT every day," and your prompt, just because you're typing something into ChatGPT doesn't mean the answer you're getting back is correct, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Doesn't mean it's true, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's where it's going to be fascinating to see how this huge growth affects
Yeah.
the younger generation coming up today. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
I think the next batch of successful people know how to set boundaries with
Right,
social media, AI, when to say yes to it and when to say no to it.
right, right. I agree. I agree. So, where do you see your company going as it relates to? I mean, obviously, it's AI driven. So, in the next 3 to 5 years, are you working on like? Is that part of your day? You're trying to look out to say, what am I going to have to do to stay relevant? What's my software going to have to be in
Mm.
3 to 5 years from now? Because I think we could ask each other the question where we think AI is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and there's a better than likely chance that we're probably both going to be wrong on some aspect of it. It's so new. I mean, it's been around since 1946, right? It's obviously it has taken a different um, look. It's than what it was back then. We're in the infancy of it, although it's been around a long time. Governments around the world haven't put frameworks in place around it, right? So, we're going to be living through that. How do you look at that? Where do you see your company in the next 3 to 5 years, and how are you like preparing for it?
It's really interesting you ask that question because I am an AI company, yes, but my goal is to solve software adoption. And if tomorrow I was to find out that AI didn't help me solve software adoption, I wouldn't use AI. So when I'm looking at my company is in 3 years, it's not so much about where AI is going to be, it's more about where software is going to be. Like what will software adoption look like in 3 to 4 years? And that is going to be affected by AI. So that's kind of more the question that I ask myself. And but AI will influence that in the sense that I don't know if you've seen in ChatGPT, but today you can chat with parts of your software. So you can connect it to external software and pull it into the chat interface and ask questions. And so something that I asked myself is like, okay, what does interaction with software look like in 3 to 4 years now that you have a mixture of prompting? Like, are you even going to be clicking on software? Like, do you need to know where to click? Or do you need to
Mhm.
know how to prompt software? And so my co-founder is really good at psychology. What's one of the things that makes him so good at sales. We were thinking about this, and he recently made a website using an equivalent to Lovable called V0 by Vercel to build a website. So he would prompt, like, build me this website with the XYZ. But then when he would wanted to prompt, like, can you move the box on the right hand side up like an inch? There was a lot of cognitive load that came with writing out that prompt, describing exactly which box, like how far up he
Mhm.
wanted to move it for the website. And the AI took time, and it would have been faster for him to just do it himself and like click it and drag it. So I realized that the goal is what gets you to iterate faster. And there is a cognitive load of like translating your mental goal into the right prompt and then getting AI to do it. And if AI doesn't do exactly how you wanted it, then you have to reprompt it. So sometimes it is faster to click. And that's where you separate type one thinking to type two thinking. So type one thinking or type one task, like just execution, like I just need to drag that box and move it up an inch for my website to look good. But then the type two task is like, I want my website to be structured more like an e-commerce website. Like that you can prompt
Mhm.
and like see what it gives you, and then you can maybe like click around. So I think the future of software adoption is conversational UI, where some things you'll prompt, so type two thinking tasks like strategy, but the type one tasks like quick execution, which are very precise, you'll still want to interact with the actual software. So then in the 4 years, user intention won't just be inferred by what you click on software, it will be inferred by what you click and what you prompt.
Fascinating conversation. What would you like to tell our listeners about autoplay? Our listeners come from, across the industry. Most of them are CEOs, founders like yourself. What would you like to say about autoplay?
I feel like if you want to improve adoption among your users, feel free to check us out. Send me a message on LinkedIn. We're really trying to do frontier work here and trying to figure out ways to try and do it at scales. If you're product led growth and you're trying to improve that, the problem is a lot of startups try to be product led growth, but they still need a human in the loop, and we're trying to reduce that. So if that's like something on your priority list, definitely reach out. Any company trying to scale adoption without having a ton of customer success in the loop, which is just not scalable when you're a company with thousands of users.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for joining. It's been a great conversation. I welcome you back as you develop and grow, and looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it.